I have tried. I find that writing is a very, for me anyway, very solitary thing, and it's more a question of hearing something in your head and then finding a way to make it real. And so for me, writing is always something I do and finish before I present anything to any other musician. And I still leave spaces for ideas, and particularly solos and things, so that the other musicians can speak in their own voice and express their own muse, as it were. But in terms of writing, the structure, the chords, the melody, and I'm a complete control freak, so I have to have all that in place. I cannot hear the song until I hear how all the parts are going to work together. Say again?
A bit throaty, that one.
I know. It's almost like...
The other one sounds good now.
Huh?
The other one sounds better. When you took the bottom end down, it sounds better.
That's the clean channel. The drum part, I write the bass part, I write the keyboard part, I write the guitar part, I write the backing vocals, I have to do it all, but that doesn't mean that I'm not still open to changing things and things evolving in the studio. But as a writer, I have to hear that whole musical picture, otherwise I don't consider I've finished the writing, So, and when I was in bands in the past, they used to hate me for it, because I would come in with a song, and some songs there'd be literally nothing for them to contribute, even as like contributors or arrangers. So it's just the way I am, and it's the way I've always been. And for historic reasons, because I started making music at a time when no one else wanted to make the kind of music I wanted to make. I started in the late 80s, early 90s, when I started making music, and I wanted to make this weird kind of psychedelic, progressive, space rock, whatever you call it. And in the 80s, everyone wanted to be in U2, and then in the early 90s, everyone wanted to be in Nirvana. And I didn't want to make that kind of music. So I ended up, historically, having to learn how to do everything, a little bit, a little bit of keyboards, a little bit of bass, a little bit of guitar, so that I could make my music without having to rely on anyone else. So historically that kind of set the pattern, and I've been unable to break out of it ever since. Honestly, it's the two things have to kind of edge towards each other gradually together. I think to write this beautiful piece of prose, written prose, and then try to write music to fit it, for me, is always a little bit awkward, because then the words are not in service to the music, and vice versa. So what I tend to do is I might have a title, or I might have an idea, or I might have a few little phrases jotted down, a few words, nice images, and I'll start to find the music that connects with those words. And then once I've got some music and a melody, then I'll write a little bit more of the words that fits the music. Then I'll write a bit more of the music. So the two are kind of gradually edging towards each other. The story is, very simply, in a single sentence, the story is about a young woman who grows up, moves to the city, and disappears, and no one notices. And so it's a story about isolation, and it's a story specifically about isolation in the heart of the city. Now, it's based on a true story. Very loosely, it's based on a character, a British woman called Joyce Vincent, who was found dead in her apartment in North London. It's about 10 years ago now. Found dead in her apartment in North London, and she had been there for 2 years, undiscovered. So she'd been dead for 2 years before anyone found her. Now, the really interesting thing about the story, not that that's not interesting already, but the even more fascinating thing about the story is that she wasn't, as I think most people would assume, she wasn't a lonely little old lady. She was a young, attractive, popular woman with friends and family. And yet, for some reason, for 2 years, no one missed her. It's extraordinary. And the more I thought about it, the more actually it began to make some sense to me, because I think one of the things I really believe is if you really want to disappear, and by the way, she was a woman who kind of deliberately isolated herself. It wasn't like everyone ignored her, quite the opposite. She gradually withdrew. And I think for me it's true to say that if you really want to disappear, go and live in the heart of the biggest city. Surround yourself with millions of other people. Go right to the place where the most people live and you will disappear. If you want to be noticed, go and live in a little country village where everyone knows everyone's business. If you want, and I think it's to me something very symptomatic or symbolic of life in the 21st century, in the technological age, that it's very easy to disappear if you want to, and it's very easy to disappear in the middle of the biggest metropolis. If you don't have a cell phone and you're not on the internet, you don't exist. It's almost like you don't exist in this age. If you don't have a Facebook page, you don't have a Twitter, and you don't have a cell phone, it's very easy to disappear. And and I speak from some experience because I lived in London for about 20 years. And during all of that time, I didn't know the names of my next door neighbours. I didn't know what they did. They didn't know who I was or what I did. About 4 years ago, I moved out of the city, only about 20 miles north. I moved to a small town outside London. And within a week, I knew all my neighbours. I knew the names of everyone that lived in my street. I knew the name of my postman. I knew the name of the local policeman. And it's so different. It's only 20 miles, but it made all that difference from living in the heart of one of the biggest cities in Europe and not even knowing the names of my neighbours. It's extraordinary, but it makes so the story begins to make some, at least it appears slightly more logical to me. But I carried this story around with me of this woman, Joyce Carol Vincent, for a long time after, and it kind of haunted me. And so when I sat down to start writing this new record, I found I was writing about her, or a character that was inspired by her. So it wasn't something very conscious. I didn't sort of read the story, or there was a documentary made about her. Yeah. I didn't read the documentary and go, bang, that's my next album. I just carried this story around with me and I couldn't get it out of my head. So when I started to write lyrics and write music and ideas, I found I was writing about this. I don't like to feel like I'm criticising anything. I think for me it's more a question of holding up a mirror, and the music becomes like a mirror, and so the people that listen to the music, it's like, here's a mirror, do you recognise yourself in the mirror? Do you recognise the world you live in this mirror? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? Obviously there is a suggestion. I think it's fairly clear that I'm not particularly a fan of some aspects of modern life. It's fairly clear that I'm fairly ambivalent about the internet. On one hand, I love it because it's an incredible way to get information and knowledge and to spread ideas. At the same time, I think it is, well, the great kind of irony of social networking actually being an incredibly antisocial thing. There are people now that use social networking almost exclusively as the way they connect with other human beings. So they don't even venture outside of, kids who sometimes don't even venture outside of their bedroom for days on end. They communicate with their friends through Facebook or FaceTime or Twitter or text messaging or compute gaming online. So there's no real human interaction at all. And that for me is a very worrying trend. But I think it's something, inherent in human nature, that technology can make us very lazy and very passive, and we almost have to fight against that natural instinct that we have to be passive. TV makes us passive, cell phones make us passive, and now the internet makes us... It's very tempting to just, sit on your sofa all day long, every day, watching TV, watching the news, watching soap operas, communicating with your friend, texting your friend. I don't have to leave my house. If I don't want to, there's no need for me to go to a party, to go to dinner, to go to a show, to go to meet my friends in the pub or whatever. There's no need for me to do that. And the natural inclination of human beings is, I can't be bothered. I just sit here and watch TV, and but you almost have to fight against that. But I do fight against it. I don't have a Facebook page. I have a fan Facebook page, but I don't have a personal Facebook page. I don't have a personal Twitter feed. I don't have a TV. Well, I do have a TV, but I only watch movies on it when I want to. I don't watch. But I have to discipline myself in a way almost to do that. And of course that becomes more and more of a dominating trend in civilization, in modern life. So from that, obviously you can see I'm not particularly positive about it. Some people are. Some people love it. They think it's great. We can communicate with other human beings. We don't even have to leave our cocoon. Is that really what human beings are supposed to do and supposed to be like? Obviously, I don't think so. So this album is a way for me to explore those topics. It does have a meaning to me. I don't really want to explain it, but listen, one of the things about making an album is that you have to give it a title. Sometimes when you give an album a title, you are telling the audience this is what the album's about. And of course the album is about a lot of things, and so to pick a title, I could have called the album The Loneliness of Living in the City, and it'd been really, telling this is what the album is about. Don't think it's about anything else, it's about that. So in a way I've deliberately chosen a title which is quite ambiguous and it's not clear, and I like that. But all I'll say is that the really key word in the title is the word erase, because this is a character that tries to erase herself from the world that she lives in. So that's a kind of clue to the heart of the album. Beyond that, I don't really want to be too explicitly clear about what it does have a meaning to me, but I like that it is ambiguous. I think the simple answer is yes, but that's being human, isn't it? I mean, there are some artists who all their music is angry. And there are some artists that all their music is sad. And there are some artists that all their music is happy. Are you happy all the time? No. Are you angry the whole time? No. So why does the music only reflect one facet of your personality and your emotional state? For me, the best analogy I can draw between my music and something else would be, say analogous to a film, because when you watch a film, you are going through most films anyway, not all films, but most films you're following some kind of emotional journey with the characters. So you have scenes that are sad, you have scenes that are happy, you have scenes where people are angry, you have scenes where people are full of joy. And then something tragic will happen, and you have incredible sadness and melancholia and nostalgia and all. And you have a lot of different elements in a film. And I've always seen, partly again because of my background and the kind of music I first was really inspired by, I've always seen my music as kind of analogous to a film or a novel. You're going on a kind of emotional journey with the character. And this is no exception. So and it keeps it interesting for me too. You know, I get bored with albums where I just feel like someone's shouting at me for a whole hour, and I get bored with albums where I feel like someone's just happy, happy, happy the whole time. It's not interesting to me. I like the emotional roller coaster. I mean, some people would not like that for exactly the same reason, you know. But to me, I guess I have a very short attention span, and I like things that are unexpected. You know, I don't like. Again, going back to the movie analogy, I don't like Hollywood movies where everything is very neat, everything ties up beautifully, and the story ends very neatly. That's not life, is it? You know, life is. This sounds like, you know, cod philosophy now, but life is not predictable, and life is very surprising. And I think, going back to this analogy of music being a mirror, you know, you're trying to mirror something that's real and reality, and so I like those unpredictable elements, musical and lyrical twists, if you like. Yeah. I think if you write songs, if you're a songwriter, you cannot help, in a way, but write songs that are universal, because we all have a shared kind of human experience. Everyone understands what it's like to be, you know, a child that perhaps feels a little bit isolated and confused. Everyone understands what it's like to have a relationship that's not working. Everyone understands what it's like to have nostalgia for childhood. Everyone understands what it's like to have confusion about the modern technological age. I don't think there's anyone in the world I could talk to that wouldn't understand those feelings. Feelings of isolation, you know, feelings of disconnect from the modern age. I don't think there's anyone I could talk to that wouldn't relate to those things in some way. So I think if you write a song, and one of the great ironies about songwriting is the more personal you make it, the more other people relate to it, because actually it feels like you're writing about them. They feel like you're writing. He's writing about me. That happened to me, and it's one of those ironies that there is, and it's one of the beauties of music, of course, is that you can write incredibly personal stuff in an incredibly selfish way, and everyone will see it mirrored through the prism of their own life. It's a wonderful thing to see it happen. Listen, I write incredibly personal stuff, and a lot of the stuff on the album comes from, even though my character is this female fictional construct, of course a lot of the things that she talks about and a lot of the things that happen to her I take from my own life, because you have to. If you want people to believe the character, you have to make it seem real. So I flesh out the character with things that I feel and things I think and things that happen to me. And the great irony of that is that everyone else will see themselves in that too, because no one is unique and everyone understands these phases of life and these feelings. So it is a kind of shared human consciousness. It's one of the great things about pop music and rock music, is that everyone feels like that it's about them.
It's broken now and cannot be repaired.
I'm trying to create some sense of female sensibility through the character. Now, I don't know how successful I am. The women will tell me, I guess, in time. But yes, I'm trying, and that was one of the big challenges for me on this record, is to put myself in the character of a female, which I've never tried to do before, and that naturally led on to, well, I'd love to have actual female presence on the record, you know, so I have a female singer and I have a female actress as well who recites a story that I wrote from the perspective of a 13-year-old girl. Now, on the surface of it, that seems like an incredible stretch. But again, a lot of the things that my 13-year-old girl character talks about are actually things that were part of my childhood. And the images that I use in that story are, I would like to think universal things, you know, that every child feels, you know, so whether you're a male or a female. So, yes is the answer to your question. To get some more female presence on the record became important to me, possibly as a way of trying to validate this idea. This is a female character, this is not me, this is a female character, and hey, here's a girl speaking the story and here's a girl singing the words, so it must be a female. So, maybe, but you know, also musically I think it works beautifully, you know. I worked with a choir once before, but an adult choir. This was the first time I worked with a boys' choir, and you know, it was like I want to do something I haven't done before. There's always going into a new project. For me, anyway, there's always the need to have some new challenge, whether it's writing from a female perspective or whether it's having a boys' choir. These are all things that are new and keep it fresh for me, and makes me write in a different way. And it was amazing. They have, and it's interesting because I also think that the boys' choir is quite a feminine sound, has a very, you know, innocent quality to it. And some people think, you know, a choir boy can also sound very similar to a female soprano voice, so it has that kind of feminine quality to it. It was fun. They were young children, so they would only be able to concentrate for about 5 minutes, and then they would need a chocolate bar. They would have to go off and have a break. But they had this. There was 14 of them, and they came along with their minder, this sort of schoolmaster, who would keep them all in order. And it was quite surreal to be in the studio, this big studio in London, with these 14 little boys running around and being like school kids, you know, like 12, 11, 13-year-old little boys. But what a beautiful sound, you know, they made when they sang like angels. They weren't angels, but they sang like